Welcome to Truth Discovery. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. December 1st, 2025, an extraordinary day in American legal history. As the first rays of sunlight touched the marble steps of the Supreme Court, anticipation hung heavy in the air. Across the nation, legal scholars, politicians, and everyday citizens waited anxiously for a decision that would shape the future of presidential power. The Supreme Court, in a rare and powerful show of unity, delivered a unanimous 9-0 decision. The gravity of the moment was unmistakable. Never before had the justices, so often divided by ideology, come together so completely on an issue of such national consequence. The justices, from the most conservative to the most liberal, struck down President Trump's use of emergency powers to impose sweeping trade tariffs. Their decision sent a clear message: no president, regardless of party or popularity, is above the constitutional limits set by the founders. This wasn't a technicality, it was a landmark verdict, fundamentally recalibrating the balance of power between the president and Congress. The court's opinion, meticulously written and signed by all 9 justices, emphasized the enduring importance of separation of powers in American democracy. For years, the court was seen as divided. Ideological rifts often defined its most high-profile cases, fueling public skepticism about its impartiality and independence. Today, it spoke with one voice, signaling that the president's actions crossed a constitutional line no justice could defend. The unity of the court sent shockwaves through Washington and beyond, reminding the nation that the rule of law stands above politics. The ruling dismantles a central pillar of Trump's economic policy, forcing a complete re-evaluation of America's approach to international trade. Markets reacted instantly, with investors and business leaders scrambling to assess the new landscape. Nations and corporations worldwide are watching, as the American system of checks and balances just played out in dramatic fashion. Allies and rivals alike are recalculating their strategies, knowing that the U.S. government's power is not unchecked but carefully balanced. The case, U.S. Chamber of Commerce versus Trump, challenged whether a president could use a national emergency to exercise Congress's exclusive power to tax. It was a question that cut to the heart of American governance, and the court's answer will echo for generations. Today, the court answered with a clear, resounding, and unified no. In doing so, it reaffirmed the enduring strength of the Constitution, and reminded the world that, even in turbulent times, American democracy is built on the rule of law. The legal battle began with President Trump's aggressive America First trade agenda, a sweeping policy shift that aimed to reshape the nation's economic relationships with the world. Determined to fulfill campaign promises and address what he saw as unfair trade practices, President Trump sought new ways to assert executive authority. Seeking to bypass Congress, he invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, a law originally designed to address extraordinary threats from abroad. By declaring a national emergency, the president imposed sweeping tariffs on billions of dollars in imported goods, arguing that urgent action was needed to protect American industries and jobs. But the move sparked immediate backlash. American businesses, trade groups, and the influential U.S. Chamber of Commerce argued that these tariffs would not only raise costs for companies and consumers, but also undermine the constitutional balance of power by allowing the president to sidestep Congress's exclusive authority to levy taxes. In court, the plaintiffs contended that IEPA was never meant to grant the president the power to impose taxes or tariffs unilaterally. They warned that if the president's broad definition of emergency stood, it could set a dangerous precedent, effectively rendering Congress powerless in matters of taxation and trade. 2 appellate courts reviewed the arguments and ultimately sided with the business coalition. Their rulings declared that the president's use of IEPA to justify tariffs was unconstitutional, reaffirming Congress's vital role in the nation's economic decisions. The administration, however, maintained that persistent trade deficits posed a national security threat and insisted that emergency action was justified. Yet, these arguments failed to convince the courts, which found the evidence lacking and the justification too broad. With conflicting lower court decisions and the stakes reaching far beyond trade policy, the Supreme Court agreed to take up the case. The nation watched as the highest court prepared to weigh in on the limits of presidential power and the future of checks and balances. The central question was clear: can a president use emergency powers to bypass Congress and impose taxes? In a landmark decision, the Supreme Court answered, no, reaffirming the fundamental principle that only Congress holds the power to tax. The Supreme Court's verdict was swift and decisive. The president's use of IEEPA to impose tariffs was unconstitutional. Chief Justice Roberts, writing for all 9 justices, reaffirmed that the power to tax, including tariffs, belongs solely to Congress. The court drew a sharp line. Regulating trade in emergencies is one thing, but imposing taxes is a core legislative function. Allowing the president to define any economic challenge as an emergency would erase Congress's role in trade policy. The tariffs are now void, impacting hundreds of billions in trade and thousands of businesses. The ruling is a major victory for business groups and a stinging defeat for the Trump administration. The White House must now seek congressional approval for any future tariffs, a far tougher path. President Trump's use of IEEPA tariffs was central to his economic nationalism, aimed at protecting American industries and pressuring foreign competitors. He saw Congress as too slow and turned to emergency powers for swift action. The administration argued threats like fentanyl and unfair trade justified emergency tariffs. After the verdict, Trump called the decision terrible, claiming it weakened America and tied his hands. The unanimous ruling, however, shows even his own appointees rejected his expansive view of executive power. Supporters see him as a disruptor, critics see a pattern of overreach. This case now defines his legacy on presidential authority. The Supreme Court's decision is a seismic event, reshaping both American politics and the global economy. Congress's authority over trade and taxation is reasserted, likely emboldening lawmakers to check presidential power more aggressively. The sudden end of IEEPA tariffs brings relief to importers and consumers, but challenges for protected industries now facing foreign competition. Internationally, the ruling opens the door for diplomatic resets with allies and a return to rules-based trade. Future presidents will think twice before using emergency powers for major economic policies without Congress. The court has drawn a clear line. Only Congress can tax, even in emergencies. Swift, unilateral action is now far more difficult. For everyday Americans, this ruling means real change. Tariffs on goods like electronics, clothing, and appliances are gone. Prices are expected to drop as import costs fall. Businesses relying on imports, especially small ones, get a lifeline as operational costs decrease. However, domestic industries once shielded by tariffs, like steel, now face renewed foreign competition and possible job losses. The debate over free trade versus protectionism will intensify, especially in affected communities. The decision forces a nationwide economic recalibration, creating both winners and losers. It's a vivid reminder that Supreme Court decisions can change the price of a TV or the fate of a factory job. The impact will unfold for months and years to come. A 9-0 Supreme Court ruling on such a divisive issue is almost unheard of. In today's polarized climate, where even the smallest issues can split the nation, a unanimous decision from the highest court stands out as a rare moment of clarity and agreement. It's a signal that despite deep ideological divides, there are still some questions that transcend partisanship and demand a united response. Dr. Evelyn Reed, constitutional law scholar, says the unanimity is the real headline. It shatters the idea that the court is just another political branch. Instead, it reminds us that the justices are guided by the Constitution, not by party lines or public pressure. This kind of consensus is especially meaningful when the country is so divided, because it shows that the law can still unite us. When justices as different as Clarence Thomas and Sonia Sotomayor agree, it signals the executive branch has strayed far beyond constitutional limits. Their agreement isn't just symbolic. It's a powerful warning that the president's actions crossed a line that all 9 justices, regardless of their backgrounds or philosophies, could not ignore. The Major Questions Doctrine played a key role, reminding us that for transformative policies, the president needs explicit congressional approval. This doctrine acts as a safeguard, ensuring that sweeping changes affecting millions can't be made by executive order alone. It's a check on power that protects the balance between the branches of government. The court's unity sends a powerful message. This was not a close call, but a fundamental constitutional issue. The justices' agreement underscores the seriousness of the case and the clarity of the constitutional principles at stake. Such unanimity strengthens the court's legitimacy and credibility in the eyes of the public. When people see the justices speaking with one voice, it builds trust in the court's decisions and reassures the nation that the rule of law still prevails. It shows the justices can rise above politics to defend the Constitution. Their unity is a reminder that at its best, the court is an institution that protects our foundational principles, even when the rest of the country is divided. By speaking with one voice, the court checked the president and reinforced its own authority. In moments like this, the Supreme Court reminds us that the Constitution is bigger than any one leader or political movement, and that sometimes unity is the strongest statement of all. At its core, this decision is a lesson in constitutional civics and the separation of powers. The framers gave Congress, the branch closest to the people, exclusive control over taxes and spending, including tariffs. The court's ruling defends this design, declaring the president cannot use emergencies to seize Congress's power to tax. The decision echoes the 1952 Youngstown case, where the court rebuked President Truman for overreach during the Korean War. Not even a national emergency justifies violating the Constitution's division of powers. The ruling isn't about whether tariffs are good policy, but about following the right process. Major economic decisions must come from Congress, not executive decree. The court has reinforced the constitutional bedrock, ensuring checks and balances endure. Today's 9-0 decision is more than a headline. It's a rare moment of institutional unity in a divided era. 9 justices, appointed by 6 presidents, stood together to defend the separation of powers. The ruling reasserts that presidential power is not absolute and that Congress alone controls taxation and trade. This course correction will shape presidents and lawmakers for decades. As businesses and consumers adjust, the impacts, both opportunities and challenges, will ripple across the nation. The decision is a real-world lesson in how checks and balances work, not just in theory but in practice. In this moment of clarity, the Supreme Court stood united to defend the Constitution, and the consequences will be felt for years to come.